Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm back with yet another Photoshop tutorial. The type of tutorial we're going to be doing today is going to be a regular banner that you can put into any type of community. It's going to be pretty open, it's not going to involve a character, and it's basically free reign for you to do whatever you really want to do with it. So it's really applicable to a wide genre and variety of servers. So without further ado, let's get right into the tutorial. I'm going to start off by hitting create new, and we're going to make our canvas size about 930 by 320. There we go. And now we have our general working area. Now normally this is a little excessive in size, but if you've seen my other videos, I like to make things a bit larger just so I have more space to work with. This next step is going to involve making our base layer section, which is where most of our work is going to be done. Now it's kind of like the previous styles that we've worked on, but it is slightly different. So we're going to want two colors that we're going to really prioritize for this design. This is going to be the first one, 44ACC6. And then going to hit X to swap colors. And the next color is going to be 933X, sorry, wrong one, 53CBD1. There we go. And these are the two colors we're really going to be focusing on. Now the first color I'm going to drop down is going to be this darker one right here. And I'm going to put this down just like this for now, and we're going to come up here and adjust the sizing. Sizing we want is going to be about 610 for the width, and for the height we're looking at about 155, and that should be a pretty decent start for the back. And of course this is just a background area, so I might adjust this in the future as necessary. Now next step is going to be, I'm actually going to wipe that real quick, and we're going to be using a grayish whitish color. I wouldn't go pure white, I would go somewhere in the gray range, and I might actually swap this color in the future, but for now I'm pretty content with it. And I'm going to be grabbing the rounded rectangle tool again. I'm going to be coming back to this later as well to make it a bit more rounded. And this time I'm going to go all the way across, and we want to jut out a bit from the other side. We're going to make this completely circular. Going to make this that gray color, and that's actually a really ugly gray, so make it a bit on the wider side. There we go. So we wanted to jut out a bit from the edge. We still want to see some of the bottom there. And so I'm going to increase the size a bit as well. Or decrease the size actually. Cut that back to about there, because this part back here is not going to be seen, doesn't really matter. Bottom is good. The jutting out isn't quite enough. So I'm going to put it to about there. Yep, okay, I like that. And then top part is actually fine, we don't need to mess with that. This is going to be our, let's see, text layer. This is where our text is going to go, and I hit caps lock accidentally. We'll just name it base layer, and we'll name this the gray layer, and we'll name this the back section. And we're going to come back to these in a moment to get a bit more stuff done on them. Next part is we're going to be adding a third overlaying section. We're going to go from here across, and it's going to jut out over to that part right there. And this is going to involve the other color that we had. So back section, another layer, Control G, and we'll name this the top section. And let's go ahead and make this yellow, just to keep everything nice and organized. To start out, we're going to grab our rounded tools, and I always use rounded just because it seems a bit boring and plain to really use anything else. And we're going to start off in about the same space. I actually don't need to be zoomed in. Drag that up. and we want this to be a little longer than that. Line up exactly with the top because this top part's going to be a part of that layer, and come to the bottom and go out about this length right here. Kind of similar to designs I've done in the past, but also a bit different. Next step is we're going to make sure that the corners are rounded to a satisfying degree. Let's go to this back section here and actually make it a bit shorter, just so we can't see that corner. There we go. So now we have this, this, and that all lined up. Let's go back to our top section, and once we're sure that this is the size we want, and yep, I believe that should be sufficient, if not a little bit smaller. Perfect. I'm going to rasterize it. I'm going to come to the corner of, let's say, where is that? Pen tool. Not pen tool. We're going to come to, let's say, this corner right here, and I'm going to cut across diagonally. Actually, no, I want this to be a bit longer. I forgot we're going to cut it. We're going to cut it when it needs to be a bit longer. Grab our pen tool, and we're going to go from this corner right here, just before it starts fading off. And we're going to want to make sure it's a perfect cut. So let's go to maybe here. No, I don't like that one. Oops, what did I do? Yeah, see, that's not a good cut. Maybe, you know, it's not quite enough actually. I just realized we're cutting from the wrong direction. We need to be cutting from the top down. Got confused for a second because I wanted to slant down with this part jutting out. My bad. Let's go to about here. No. Oh, that is very nice. Look at that. Oh, that was perfect. Cool. I'm going to go all the way around. I'm holding shift to get straight lines now. And make selection. And just delete that off the face of the planet. And now we have this part here cut out, ready to go, everything else lined up. And now the final part for this top section is you're going to make it go all the way across, jutting down just a little bit to hang over this gray area. Let's go ahead and grab our rounded rectangle tool once again. Our favorite tool. I'm going to make it jut down. And I'm just going to drag this up. Oops, that was the wrong button. Drag this across, make sure you're holding shift, and go out all the way to the ends of the universe. No, I'm joking. And we want to go out to, let's say, here. Cool. I'll make sure that's right. Cool, and that should be pretty decent for that part of it. I'll actually move it back just a wee bit. Cool. Now the next step is take a look at the top, see the height is 22 pixels, and create a new layer. And now we're going to have it curve around this part here just a little bit, just so it looks like this whole gray area is contained within this cyan area. So we're going to go over to our ellipse tool. Take note that the height was 22 pixels, so we're going to switch to stroke, make it 22 pixels, solid line, and then we're going to create a circle. And the way you want to line this up is so the top touches here, just like that, and that's going to wrap around. So you might need to play around with it just a little bit to make sure it lines up the way it should. So it might take a little bit of time to get that perfect. Now you only really need to line it up to about center, so it shouldn't be overly difficult. I'll be right back once I've got that lined up. Cool, so I went ahead and lined it up. I'm going to go ahead and rasterize that. I'm going to come from the top and I'm just going to chop it all off here. that's no longer needed. Chop it off to about here, because that's not needed. And then we're going to do another part here that's going to involve this gray layer. So make sure on the ellipse, click the base layer, and we're going to click delete. Hopefully that works as intended. Yep. And actually we're going to make a few adjustments off here because we want it to look like it fades down and goes around the back here. Now we're going to add a stroke to this. And we only want the stroke to really go in that direction. It'll go back over the side a little bit. Say about 2 pixels. Yeah, that should do it. Go there. Let's chop off this part to about here. And what I'm actually going to do for this part is I'm going to grab the pen tool. I'm going to come across the top. I'm going to click here. And we're going to have a curve off into nothingness. Cool, so it's not the cleanest. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. It kind of didn't turn out as well as I thought it would. Maybe if I start farther back and I kind of just do the whole thing. Let me try that. Okay, that wasn't what I intended to do. If I start from about here and I curve it like that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that's a bit better. Still a little funky at the top, but it's alright. And now that we have this lined up, we're going to go ahead and apply a drop shadow. Just so it looks like it's dropping down on top of the gray area. Let me zoom out a second because I can't see anything. I'm going to pause once I get the settings right. Cool, so actually let me show you the settings that I did. 41, 2, 9, and 5. And actually, this part right here, I'm going to merge this down real quick. I want to try to fix that. Let's rasterize this. Merge down the ellipse. And start farther back with the pen tool. Let's say here. Just so we can get this whole thing curving down, which would be ideal. Because right now it is a little awkward, I'm not going to deny. Maybe that was too far back? Yeah, maybe I should get the curve here. Okay, that's better. Yeah, before it was really funky because it just had a sudden jutting off, but here it looks like it curves down better. So that's good. So that's curving down better. Got a drop shadow. We're going to have one more drop shadow now for the base layer, for the gray area, to drop down onto the blue. There we go. Let's change this to 9 degrees, so go straight down. Distance right about there. That's good. So 31, 2, 8, and 5. And okay, so we have all of our 3 layers all set up and ready to go now. So as you can imagine, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a number here on the left, text here in this grayish area, and you can kind of customize from there if you want to, depending on how simple or complex you want to do this. For example, you could have, if you've seen some of my other tutorials, actually let me open up one of the old ones, one second. One thing you could do that area kind of similar to this is have all this stuff going on in the background. And it really is just up to you, as I mentioned before, how simple or complex you want to do it. So I'm just going to do the simplest style, and I'll show a few complex things, and then that's really it for the tutorial. So let me go ahead and get the text and such added in, and I'll go over the settings for those. Okay, the text, I just use the same exact color as the gray. I went ahead and put these two sections into a folder, and I'm using Tokyo Font, which I have linked. It's not free, but I'm sure you guys are able to find ways to acquire any font that you desire. I'm not going to list what those ways are, but you'll figure it out. So we have our numbers on the right. You can either do 01 or just 1. It's really up to you. I'm not really going to touch any of this here at the top. That's fine in my opinion. Now you can do some other things with this font. Not with the font, with this area. And I'll get into those in a second once I've got this other fonts typed in. Alright, and then for the font of the text, I chose to use the Nexa Bold fonts. It's pretty nice fonts. This one is free. They have free and paid versions. This is called a demo version. You can download for free. I have that linked as well. And the color, I just used this blue from the initial base layer to make the rules. And then the sizing, kind of up to you how big or small you want to do it. I'm going to keep it at 104 because I think this is pretty decent, and I'll center it. And depending on how long your text is, you can shorten it or enlarge it. It's really up to you. So this is it for the simple version of the banner. I'll go into a few details on how you can make it more detailed, but it really is a great simple banner that you can put into any community. You can swap the colors up, and this is how I do it. For this base, I have a darker color, so you have a dark red as an example, and then for this area I use a lighter color, and I use a lighter red. And here you'd always keep it gray or white or whatever color variation you want to do. And the font, initial dark, and then the text over here, the gray. And you would have to do 01, just 1 works fine. So that's the simple. Now let me get into some additions you can make to this to help spice it up a little bit. Alright, the first things I did to help make it a bit more different is, and this is completely up to you if you want to do a text like this, I added a inner shadow. Now some people consider this good looking, some might not. These are the settings for it, 66003. And it just kind of looks as if this blue layer had the 0 and 1 cut through it, laser etched, and now you're seeing the back of this gray section. And they can always play around with the effect more to make it more or less visible. But I think this is a nice touch to add just a little bit more to the image. And if you're wondering would I personally do this, it kind of depends on the situation. Some cases I would, some cases I wouldn't, but it's nice just to have something else besides plain text right there. And then for the base, I move the drop shadow down to this base there because otherwise that drop shadow will be affecting the 1, and we don't want that. And I add a pattern overlay, just straight lines. These are the settings. If you just Google line patterns, you'll find a ton of different options that you can choose from. And this is the next step that you can take, and I'm going to give you a few more steps of how to improve this even further. Okay, this is the next step. I added dotted lines all the way around the edges, except for this part here, which I suppose I could add one going up and stopping right at this point, but it would also look a little bit awkward because it's not really connecting to anything. So I had it end here, but I suppose no, it would look awkward if I had it curving up here because it's a straight cutoff here. But anyway, I add a dotted line going all the way around, and let me show you how I did that. Let me actually name this dotted line. So you see our initial layer here. I did 2 pixels for the sizing. For the color, I did white as you can get, 5 Fs. Is that 5 Fs? It should be 5 Fs. And then I curved it at 22 pixels just to match the current curve that we have. I centered it, I resized it with Control T, and now we're here. Next step is we rasterize the layer. We cut off to here for now. Cut that. We come up here to the top, cut right here. And now you can see we have our left side completed. Next step is we come over to the top section. We go over to here, Control J. I said Control T. I don't even know what I said. And we're going to resize or remove this just to where it lines up exactly like the others do. And then we keep this up, Control J, if I can properly move this. And now you can see Photoshop automatically detects where it lines up. I just merge those layers. And it makes lining up even easier. So Control J again, 3 pixels, Control J again, move it over. We are at 3 pixels, Control J again, move over, and 3 pixels. And this extra piece coming off, we're going to cut it to right about here. As you can see, that's going all the way across. Let's go ahead and merge those layers. The space section here, I'm going to copy one over, just because it'll look nice. There we go. And now, there we go. We have exactly what we just made. We'll actually merge all these layers together. See? Exactly the same. And then we'll leave that right there. And this is really the next step that you take for this banner. And then there's one more thing I'd probably do. This area is a bit difficult to really decide to work with because I want to keep the initial integrity of this back gray area. But again, there's stuff that you could do to it to help spice it up. You could add potentially a dot pattern. But really the idea for this design is to really keep that initial gray area. So if you want to change it up, you could, but I would personally just leave it as is and maybe make modifications to the text, or yeah, that's really just about it. So I'm going to pause again and I'll be back with another change or improvement. Okay, I'm back. The first change we're going to talk about is a text in the center. Now you can argue that it's not an improvement, it actually made it worse, but it really depends on what your personal style preferences are. Blending options, these are the settings, a pattern overlay once again, and a drop shadow. And I mean, you could also do the same thing as here and have a cut in, but it's up to you how you really want to go ahead with editing the center part. But as I mentioned before, I wouldn't really mess with the gray area because that's part of the design that really shouldn't be changed all that much. And then for the back, you could see, as you probably noticed, I wasn't giving the back much love. It's really hidden, so you don't need to go over the board with it with high detail, high resolution. But I wanted to give it a little bit of something just so it isn't a solid color going across. So I add some dots at soft light with 78% opacity. It's not much, but it definitely helps make the image feel a bit better than before. And I'm going to consider this done. There's certainly more things that could be done with it, and it's a lot better than what the initial design was. Initial design was pretty simple, but always improvements that can be made. Now if you actually want to save this, highlight over all of it, edit, copy merged, file, new, create, Control V. As you can see, now it's sized down to the actual size of the image. The reason I like working with larger spaces is, as I mentioned before, I have more working room. So if I want to grab, for say, this text and move it to the side for a second, I can do that. I'm not dragging it out of the frame. I'm actually hide this all up. And once you're here, the way you want to save this is you can do File, Save as PNG, but my personal preference is Save for Web. And it's going to pop up this right here, and then just click Save, and it's automatically going to save as PNG. Never save as JPEG for a transparent banner. It is the worst thing you could ever do. It's going to get rid of the transparency and your image isn't going to look great. So always either save for web PNG or save as PNG, but really go for this one because this one also helps lower the file size a bit. So if you're uploading to Discord with a bot, or your image gets super detailed and a huge size, saving for web will help drop the size a bit. That's really it for this tutorial. I have another one on screen with another fun design that you can make, and I thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day.